Hey, Dylan.
Hey, Mike.
Dylan, you know there's about 3 weeks left to the Dream Build Play competition?
I wasn't counting exactly, but yes, I knew time was kind of short.
Time was extremely short.
Yes.
I'm going to say at this point, if you have not started working on your 3D rendering engine, you might as well just throw that idea out. You're not going to do an engine from scratch in 3 weeks.
Right.
In this situation, it is time for you just to man up and get the Sunburn Gaming Engine, which the Sunburn Gaming Engine had an excessive amount, an overabundance of games in Dream Build Play last year. So Orbitron Revolution, we talked about this. Avaglide 2, we talked about that. Progenitor, we talked about that and interviewed the developers on that. And then they shelved the project to go do Guncraft, which I'm in the beta of now. And I don't know if Guncraft is Sunburn. I need to check up on those guys, find out what Andy and crew are up to there. But Progenitor, these guys all became finalists. And you know, this is not saying that, you know, they won the contest, but let's be honest, like, winning the contest, I think is going to be like $20,000 for the top prize.
Yeah.
There's $100,000 total for the phone and the Xbox. Not a lot of money. You're not in this for the money.
And it's hard to do a side-scrolling platformer with grass in 3D.
It is. I think you could probably, with the Sunburn community tools, download the side-scrolling grass generation tool and just click the button.
Someone needs to make that.
If it doesn't exist, someone does need to make
Dream
that.
Build Play.
The Dream Build Play generator. And the thing is that to be a finalist this year, all 20 finalists will be introduced to publishers. Okay? So it's going to be beyond just the number one or two. They already stated that, hey, we're not going to, in fact, it's actually kind of shitty to be honest. We're not going to, no, you can't. All right, we've had a baby terrorist invade the Sunburn. Say hi. Okay, we're back to the Sunburn ad now. In the past, they've just given like the top one or two, and then they've said like, hey, you know, we'll get published on XBLA Live Indie Game or XBLA, and now they're not even saying that they're going to guarantee the top place to be published on XBLA, which is kind of shitty on Microsoft's part, in my opinion.
Did we just turn an ad into commentary?
It did.
Okay. Carry on.
But the cool thing is that in place of that, all 20 will get shopped around at least, will get introduced, which, hey, you know, that may be enough to get introduced to the right partner. And, you know, if you won, you have popularity now, and maybe you want to go strike your own publishing deal and not be locked into anything. So, you know, it may be good on all counts. You know, you may want to hit the industry publisher that has the most experience with side-based grass-covered scrolling platformers, and to really, you know, market that well. Or you may just want to say like, hey, I'm going to go with this iOS publisher. Thank you for the Dream Build Play competition in XNA. It's nice, but see ya. You know, we're going to mono game port this and get this to a platform that makes money. So if you want to learn more about the Sunburn Gaming Engine and how that can help you make a side-scrolling platformer with grass, check out the guys at Synapse Gaming, and you can find out all this information over at synapsegaming.com. All right, everyone, welcome to the show. Sorry for the rough start here. With me this morning is Dylan.
Hi.
Cicelie.
Hola.
Jasmine is running and doing podcast terrorism as always.
Trying to kill herself in the middle of
Sunburn.
ad.
And then we also have Dave Johnston of Smudged Games. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Hey, good morning.
All right. If you guys don't know Dave, you definitely should. He has several XNA titles out, several on the Xbox Live Indie Service and one on XBLA. Adventures of Shuggy, former Dream Build Play competition entry, and is now on XBLA. Gateways, Growing Pains, A Bomb's Way, sequel to the Tower, A Bomb's Way, and Time Slip. Interesting one on Time Slip. I think I've talked about that one on other podcasts, but I didn't realize that was a PlayStation 1 game.
Yeah, it was made quite a way back. I think it was in 1999 it was actually made. So yeah, it's actually quite an old game.
Did you do any of the PS1 dev kit stuff?
No, it wasn't done on a professional dev kit. There was the kit at the time, the Eurosi, it was called,
Right.
which was the kind of a lot of people do call it the forerunner to the XNA stuff. Yeah, it's kind of homebrew kit for the PlayStation 1.
Yeah, so we talked about that on a prior episode, 'cause I had no idea that Sony had done something like that, and how awesome and cool that was, that you could just join this thing and get this kit, and the kit wasn't that much, right? A couple $100?
Yeah, it wasn't. I can't remember exactly how much it was, but weirdly, I never actually got charged for it. I sent away all the details. I can't remember if it was credit card details or what, but they never charged the card. I actually got the Eurosi for free.
Wow. Okay, so you're like the second person to report that, I think.
Oh, really? Was someone else did that?
Oh, wait. Maybe maybe what I'm doing is I'm quoting you in your own article on Gamma Sutra, where you were.
It's probably been mentioned somewhere. Yeah.
They might have mentioned that, but yeah, I do remember reading that. So I mean, that's pretty cool. So you've been in indie game dev for a good long while, then.
Yeah, I suppose there's a bit of a pause though. I mean, I did Time Slip quite a while back, and then got a proper job. So it's been sort of long periods of not doing much. And then Shuggy, I suppose, was when I actually came back to the indie scene.
So let's talk on Shuggy for a little bit here. So first of all, we'll just we're not going to bury the lead here. Shuggy's coming to Steam.
Yeah.
And I think that launches in 2 days? No, I'm sorry.
No.
Next month.
It's next month. It's the 13th of June.
13th of June.
Yeah.
So next month it'll be up, available on Steam. So, and I understand that there's contracts and you can't talk about everything. So talk about what you can talk about. But how did that come about? How did that end up happening?
Well, I mean, there were a lot of people at the time when Shuggy was released on XBLA. A lot of forum comments and stuff that I saw. People quite wanted to play the game on PC, primarily through Steam, because that's where most people like to play PC games. So yeah, I decided it was probably best, given the way things went on the XBLA version, which wasn't that brilliant. So I decided at the beginning of this year to try and get a PC version of the game running, and submitted it to Steam. Took them a while to get back to me about actually getting it on Steam. But
now, did you submit it directly, or did you have a publisher on your behalf go?
No, this time round, I'm self-publishing. Yeah, I'm doing it on my own. I didn't feel it went that brilliantly with the publisher on XBLA, so yeah, I've decided just to try self-publish.
Yeah, so backing up in the history of Shuggy, you entered this in the first Dream Build Play contest?
Yes, that's right. It was the very first one back in 2007.
Back in 2007, that was the year that James Silva won, right? I think.
Yes, yeah, that's right. He got the top rank.
And then you were like second or third runner-up. You were pretty high up.
No, I wasn't actually. There were 4 winners that year. I see if I can remember them now. There was Dishwasher, which was James Silva. There's Yoho Kablamo, which did become an XBLA title. I think has also disappeared. What else was there? There's Blazing Birds, a weird kind of badminton type game, which became an XBLA title. And there was something else which I don't think ever made it to XBLA. And I, unfortunately, was one of the other 16 of the top 20 finalists.
Okay, so you were in the finalist run then. Okay, I thought it was a little higher, but from that, I guess you started getting conversations with publishers, or a publisher.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, as a result of that, I went over to the Game Fest conference, as it was then, where they're announcing the winners, and obviously I was pretty gutted not to be one of the top winners. But yeah, that was where I met a few publishers and got chatting to some folks and managed to secure a deal after a long period of discussions.
Okay, now I don't. Can you talk much about the deal, or is that something you can't talk about?
Yeah, no, I mean the first deal that I actually got was with Sierra Online, who were then owned by Vivendi Games. So I mean, I had a contract with them, publishing deal, which was pretty good. I mean, I got decent milestone payments for sort of progressing along with the game, and everything was looking all set for the game to actually be released.
Then that was what I was going to ask. So the first contract you got, that it was a milestone payment system. So essentially the way that this works is that the the contract is a set number of things that you have to deliver on certain dates, and if you meet those dates, and they keep paying you at a regular interval, right?
Yeah, basically. So it's like meeting a kind of alpha type requirement. So yeah, a certain amount of features that have gone into the game. So yeah, there were a few. I can't remember how many there were, but yeah, it was quite a kind of regular thing. Every couple of months.
Now that sounds pretty scary to me, having not entered that kind of negotiation thing, because it's game development and you're locking yourself to a set path, one, but two, it's like things come up and all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, this is a bigger issue than I initially thought, and if I don't make this deadline, they can stop paying me and take all my stuff and take all the intellectual property and all that. But that's assuming that these are going to be awful, horrible milestones. Were they that way in reality, or was it much more like, okay, these are pretty reasonable?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It was kind of a scary prospect from being an indie developer and just doing games as you want to do them, and when you've got the time, to actually committing yourself to doing so much by a certain date. Quite scary, but at the same time, it's quite cool as well, because that's you sort of becoming a proper game developer and actually getting paid to do it. The milestones, from what I remember, they were okay. I felt fairly comfortable that I would be able to actually get them completed in time. I can't remember exactly what they were now. It seems like a while ago now. Contract was sort of 2008, which seems like a dim, distant memory now. I know it's only 4 years, but...
Well, and then after the Vivendi and Sierra Online, right, that fell through, and then you were looking for another publisher?
Yeah, well, Vivendi, Sierra Online, got taken over by Activision Blizzard at the time. I think that was, the end of 2008 sometime. And the biggest problem for me was actually when Activision Blizzard took over, they didn't really particularly care about a little contract like Adventures of Shuggy. Obviously, they've got much bigger fish to fry. And it basically just went silent. I had this contract with the company, Vivendi.
I think statistically, compared to World of Warcraft, you didn't exist.
Yes, that's the gist.
You couldn't see the Shuggy bar chart next to the WoW revenue bar chart. It technically wasn't even 1 pixel.
Yes, yeah. So I was pretty low priority. So it meant all the people that I dealt with at Sierra Online, they'd all been made redundant. They all disappeared. So the people that I'd been regularly chatting to and stuff were no longer there. I couldn't email them. And then trying to get hold of someone at Activision Blizzard to find out what was going on was one of the biggest problems. Because obviously I was still technically bound by a contract. So I felt I couldn't really approach another publisher, because a publisher would say, well, you've got this deal, which is already there. The company still technically existed. So, I was in a bit of limbo for a while until I finally managed to hear from someone at Activision Blizzard. And they just obviously said, right, fine, we cancel the contract. We don't really care. Which was good for me. Thankfully, they didn't try and keep hold of the IP or anything. They basically just said, fine, look, forget about the milestone payments we've given you. Forget about everything. Just go away, I suppose, generally.
Don't make this messy for yourself.
Look, we can. You could just walk away, or we can send lawyers. What do you want? But we're not publishing.
So I was pretty happy with that. It meant I got the IP back. I could, try and chase down another deal. So I was pretty happy with that. It could have ended much worse, I guess.
So and it didn't come after for any kind of development cost or sunk cost that. While Vivendi was paying you for the milestones, they didn't say okay, and we need that money back.
No, thankfully. If they'd asked for that money back, I would have been pretty royally screwed.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like the best outcome for the situation. You don't want to go into a situation like that, but being able to get your IP back and just, shake hands and walk away, that
Yeah, it was a lot of relief for that to finally happen, because obviously at the time I had no idea how it was going to go. So for them just to say, yeah, fine, we'll just walk away from this was actually, pretty good outcome, really. But it's still been interesting to see how the game would have fared had Sierra Online still been around and actually managed to release the game. But hey, you can always wonder, I guess, of what might have happened.
Yeah. So who picked it up after this point?
Well, after a while of searching around, trying to find someone that could pick the game up, I signed a deal with Valcon Games. That was signed the end of 2009, I think. So it was like a year between things going dead with Vivendi, Zero Online, and actually signing another deal. So then, they took over. Obviously, they had things that they wanted to change in the game, so kind of got started in that cycle again. I had another deal with the same kind of arrangement of like milestones, which you had to meet to show progress in the game. And it went sort of fairly well until when the game was actually released, there wasn't really a lot of publicity for it, unfortunately.
Any publicity for it?
Well, yeah, maybe any publicity is maybe a better way of saying it. It's one of those things. I feel like it's maybe one of the areas I'm not as good at, and I should have done more at the time myself, really. But I kind of thought, well, if I'm going with a publisher, they're going to know what they're doing. They'll be able to, push the game and get it out there. But unfortunately, that didn't happen as much as I would have liked, really. And at the time, I was kind of relying on them. But looking back, I really wish I'd done a lot more to actually try and promote the game myself.
Now, when you were going through the contract process, was it just you, or did you hire a lawyer on your side to review the contract, or someone, or did you just try to make sense of it?
I definitely did for the Vivendi Sierra Online part. There was definitely a lawyer in there. Yeah, I did get someone involved for the Valcon side as well. Actually, now that I think about it. I didn't completely. Getting the contracts in, pretty scary things, full of legalese, just massive blocks of text, which are pretty hard to comprehend.
Yeah.
So I was kind of looking at it thinking, I'm not sure I really want to get myself stitched up here. So yeah, I'm going to get someone to look this over.
The thing that I have heard, and we don't have any experience, so I'm just talking off of, watching extra credits and reading some legal blogs on gaming and things like that, is usually what they advise you to go in and say is that try to get in the contract an agreement upon the marketing dollars that will be spent on the game, but you generally can't ask for how that will be spent. That is up to the publisher to decide. So you couldn't go in and say, like, I want Xbox dashboard placement ads, but you could say, like, okay, for this, I guarantee me that you're going to spend $20,000 marketing my game.
Okay.
And you read these things and it just makes you more scared, because it's like, well, I had no idea that you would have to ask for that.
I clearly had no idea as well.
And the other thing too is making sure, like, I guess the big advice is, like, don't read the contract under the assumption that the game is going to get published. Read the contract under the assumption that they won't publish it, and you have to.
Yeah, everything's going to go wrong.
Yeah, like, okay, you got to make sure it goes wrong. You got to make sure you get your IP back, and things like that. Now, did you experience one practice I read on these blogs is that these publishers will tend to draw out negotiations, because the longer they can negotiate the contract, the less time they have to pay for the development of the game, because you're obviously still working on the game while you're trying to get the contract, and they're not having to pay for milestones because there's no contract in place yet. Did you feel that was the case, or do you think that they were pretty quick and it was just like, the process is long?
No, I'd probably say there was an element of that. There's maybe things could take a while. I mean, there were a lot of things with Valcon where it was quite hard to get a response from them, which can be very frustrating as a developer, just on my own. But I think the Sierra Online stuff wasn't really like that. It went pretty well. But Valcon, there's certainly a bit of dragging heels.
So all things said, though, I would say, this process, may be sounding horrible to some others, and, it's like, oh, wow, we don't need to you need to avoid this, and this is horrible and all that. But if the result here like you get to step back and look at the result, is that your game got out there and it got traction, and you got enough fans to support you that when you contacted Valve and Steam, that they took a look and eventually got back, and now you're self-published on Steam, which should do fairly well. I have yet to hear of somebody going, yeah, we got on Steam and made no money. You know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, people do seem to say, yeah, a lot of good things about getting on Steam. So yeah, I've got my fingers crossed that things are going to go pretty well there. But then I thought things were going to go well on XBLA, so I was that slight element of not trying to get too excited about stuff.
And XBLA has had horror stories of much larger games, such as Jonathan Blow with Braid and Team Meat guys, coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to have their problems. Gladly trade places and deal with these horrible Microsoft restrictions, but I guess XBLA is not what it used to be in terms of sales.
XBLA has changed a lot, I think, since when I started Shuggy back at start of 2007. I mean, XBLA has changed a lot since then.
So I think a lot of that might have to just do with the direction Microsoft's taken the Xbox. Like, you log into that dashboard, it's not about games anymore. It's about wanting to sell me videos and like, hey, go download High School Musical 3 or whatever, and games are this little thing in the corner, and your indie games are in this thing in the corner of the corner. But even the XBLA titles are not very prominent.
It tends to be like, you hear about the really anticipated ones, but they aren't pushing it as a service, it seems like.
So at any point in this process, especially when you were like a year between contracts and all that, did you consider just clean it up a little bit and put it out on Xbox Live Indie Games? Or were you like, no, I'm going to keep this one back. This is my big game, and I'm going to hold out for something on this one?
Yeah, that was. I asked myself that question so many times over the course of developing Shuggy. I thought, I could get this, sorted out and released on indie games in, a couple of months. But at the time, indie games were really, well heading away. The indie games are actually not too bad now. They've been raised slightly up the dashboard. They're still a bit heading away. But at the time, no one was really making any money out of Xbox Live indie games. And I just thought, Live Arcade is the only way you can really sell, like a reasonable number of copies of a game. So, on reflection, maybe it's another one of those things that maybe I should have just gone the indie route. But at the time, I thought, no, I'm going to try and hold out for Live Arcade, see if I can get another publishing deal.
And this, at this time, I guess this is when you worked on the other games, The Bomb's Way, The Time Slip, and Growing Pains?
Yeah, actually, the two, A Bomb's Way, A Bomb's Climb, were actually going to be sort of mini games within Shuggy. So they'd already been taken out. They were actually taken out quite early because it felt like actually there's quite a lot of stuff going into Shuggy. There's already quite a lot going on in there. So I decided to pull those out and thought, if I just reskin these, I can just release them as little mini games on Xbox Live Indie Games, which was sort of kept me going. At least it gave me other little projects to work on, because working on Shuggy for that length of time as well was starting to wear me down a little bit. So it was nice to be able to do other little projects, which I could do in like a few months, see through to completion and actually release. It's a lot more satisfying than working on Shuggy. And
then Growing Pains, to me, like, we played that, and I think we did a quick look on that one when we were reviewing games. As a developer, that felt like a great, like, I get a cool idea for a concept, and I just want to see if it works game.
Yeah. That wasn't a mini part of Shuggy at any stage. That was a little game that I decided just to do to kind of fill the time. Probably took me about 3 months to actually do from start to end, because there's not a massive amount going on. You've got the basic concept of a character growing, and then you've got to design levels. There weren't really any graphic stuff in it. There were no sprites in it at all. It was all like a vector based graphics. So I didn't. I mean, I can't do artwork myself at all. I've got work with other people to do graphics on the games, but on this occasion, it was all kind of procedurally generated stuff or vector based. So yeah, it was one that I could get away with without really involving any other people.
I lost my question. It was right there. Hold on. Come back, question.
One of the things that I meant to say actually inspired Growing Pains was my wife at the time, because that was when she was pregnant, and it was this idea of a character that continually grew and grew, which my wife was a little bit miffed that was inspired by her ever expanding as she was pregnant, and sort of bumping into stuff, not really realizing what size she was.
I guess that might have backfired you on a little bit of hey, dear, you've inspired me to make a game. And it's about you getting huge.
It's but something gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, she wasn't that happy, but she's all right with it.
So I was going to ask you, what have you kind of settled on? Have you written your own, or are you using any off-the-shelf or open-source tool set outside of XNA for your games? Is there anything that you like, anything you go back to?
No, I don't really use much third-party stuff. I tend to write my own editors and things for the games as well. I mean, I've looked at like tiled and different editors for 2D games, but I don't know. I kind of always like the freedom of having designed my own editor, and then I can add features or things which are specific to my game.
At what point do you start making your editor and tools for the game?
Well, it only has to be pretty early on. I mean, normally do some kind of concept stuff. I'm trying to think what I did for Growing Pains. I mean, I probably did sort of put in enough code or sort of hard-coded levels just to get the idea of like the character growing and get the character movement and that kind of stuff. But then once I've got the basics there, character jumping around and stuff, then yeah, it's time to actually do a level editor, so you can design levels.
No. Yeah. So that is something that I have noticed. I think that's a good thing for developers to hear. Is a lot of successful indie developers, successful being completing good games, shipping games. They're getting their ideas done and out. The tools are very, very early in development. Like that's the first thing. James Silva does that as well. It's like get the tool set up so that you can generate content, and then you can start playing with the game and tweaking from there. But until you can get that up and going, and you can easily add content to the game, you can't revise an idea and get it to the point. Get it to a point where it's going to get really creative for you.
Yeah, I mean, I always find that once I've done the editors, I wish I'd spent more time working on the editors, because it does normally need to be done fairly early on in the development of the game, so you can produce the content and stuff. And for games like Growing Pains, which I'd like to release a PC version of as well, I kind of wish that I could release a level editor with it. But looking at the one I've done, I kind of think it's not really good enough to actually release and have other people use. It's a little bit creaky around the edges. I wish I spent a little bit more time on it so that it looked more of a professional editor. Our board editor for Inca Blocks, the output of creating the game boards was C# code that you then cut and paste into the project. So it was all Right.
hard-coded, and we used the editor just to create the arrays and matrices because we just were time crunching, and
I think we were building it to actually output like XML or something. Like it output some format we could use, and then we had some problem with the
content pipeline, and
I was just like,
we put it at the end of our process instead of the beginning of our process. So we were like, screw it, just it spits out C#. We cut and paste that into, like, I think I even like added a feature where it would automatically copy the C# to the clipboard, so you didn't even have to copy it. It just paste it. Just go into the editor and you hit paste.
Of course, we had a very small number of levels, and they were pretty simple.
Yes, they were. But I think that's a hallmark of us being amateurs.
Well, I mean, there's nothing particularly wrong with that. I mean, I used to work at Rare, back. It was a while ago, right enough, but about 2000. And the graphic editor they used there, I used to work in the Game Boy Advance team, and they had a sprite editor, and the output of that for putting in games, basically output source code. It was for putting straight into C, which is this massive array of all the pixel data for the graphics, and that's what they used. So even professional games companies do stuff like that. I guess that's not what they do now, but back then, yeah, that's what they did.
The porting to PC. So a lot of people that listen to podcasts and that are working on XNA, we target the Xbox, and if it runs on my Xbox, it runs on your Xbox, and I'm done. I don't have to worry. Yeah. About anything there. Of course, when you go to the PC, then first of all, installing the framework is not straightforward for the client. That there's tons of posts of people trying to get that right in the forums. I know that because I star them and favorite them, because when I come across that problem, I'm just going to go back to all their threads to do that. Yeah. And there's also now with XNA 4, and I don't know if you've moved it to XNA 4, if you left it.
It's XNA 4.
Is it XNA 4? Okay. So there's the reach versus high def issue as well. So how did you handle those with Shuggy?
The reach versus high def thing is it's a bit of a weird issue, because I'm using the high def profile for Shuggy, because there were just too many things that were missing from the reach profile. I had to go the high def route, which is quite annoying when I kind of see some people's setup and I kind of think, I think Shuggy should be able to run on there. But because there's some little bit of their graphics card which is missing some feature of the high def profile, it means it just won't run.
Yes.
Because it doesn't support all of the features of the high def profile, which can be quite annoying. But there's just too difficult to get it to run on the reach profile, because I have messed around with it. And tried to get it running back when I was originally porting it. So it's a kind of double-edged sword, but at least this high-def profile stuff, at least that everything is there. I think basically the XNA framework is going to check that the graphics card's got all the features, and they actually cut out a lot of stuff going from XNA 3.1 to XNA 4 to make sure that stuff was going to be supported, which is annoying at the time for converting the code, but at least you're doing it thinking, well, at least I know this is going to be supported by more graphics cards and more people are going to be able to run the game.
Now, in that, do you have so you're on Steam, there's no trial service on Steam. So are you trying to come up with any way of letting people know they can or can't run this game, or how? Yeah,
it's tricky. You can set the minimum requirements, obviously. But I would like to release a demo version of the game, just the same as it is for the Xbox. And at least I always feel that's one way you can check out the game, but it's also one way of checking out that the game's actually going to run as well.
So when it comes to actually bundling up and packaging it, how did you go about making sure the prerequisite of the XNA framework was there?
I found something on the forums, the AppHub forums, which seemed to suggest a good installer script using setup. And this, it seemed to be pretty good. Got the right .NET version and the XNA framework, which all gets packaged up into one installer, which is what I've used, and it seems to be working. I released a demo of one of my other games, Gateways, and I didn't have anyone saying that, it didn't seem to run once they actually ran the installer. So hopefully that seems to be working now. I do think they changed it with XNA 4. I think before there used to be a lot more problems with it. You needed some weird DirectX web installer version thing that would actually run. Your machine would look as if it had the right version of DirectX, but you needed to run this weird special version to make sure there was something else installed. And I think they've removed that now, which is a blessing.
So does Steam handle game updates for you, or is that something that you have to code and handle yourself?
No, we supply them with obviously the updated version of the game, and then the Steam framework will handle any actual updates, getting them out to the users.
Okay, so you didn't have to get in any like click once type mess or anything like that.
No, I haven't had to be involved in any of that stuff.
So that's pretty good. If you go out for more services, Click Once is Microsoft's update framework that you can choose to build in the game, and it has some default settings that are okay in like a corporate business setting where you can just explain to help desk that, you know, hey, this box is going to pop up, and then they need to close the app and restart it. But it does have an API that you can do all of it yourself. So you can say, hey, there's an update available, click here to update and build all that UI in your game. It has a lot of funny edges though. And it can get tricky, but I know it's been done with Xbox, with X and A games. But definitely if you can take advantage of Steam. See, I don't know what the others do, the Indie Game City and Desura and those. I don't know if they also provide frameworks. And at some point, if they're open to it, you may just want to say like, hey, I'm gonna centralize it here because it's on 3 systems. I don't know if they're all open to that idea or not. And how that works.
I would guess the frameworks probably have their own way of doing it. They'd probably want to stick with that. Desura must have a similar system, and the other ones. I mean, they would all deal with updates, so they must have their own setup for it.
I don't know if you're allowed to talk about this because I know there's something you can't on Steam and can or can't on Steam talk about. But does Steam give you any kind of metrics and dashboard information beyond just like sales data, but how much time is spent playing the game, how many people play the game, do they enter crashes at some point, that kind of stuff?
I'm trying to think if any of that would be bound by NDA. I mean, obviously I've not released a game yet, so I don't know exactly what metrics I am going to get. There is. I think there is some support for the reporting crashes and stuff. They've got some kind of database where you can go and look up.
Because I know that I think on iOS, and I definitely know for Android. For Android, like you can get this in complete like profile of the aggregate of systems that are running, what Android devices are running your game.
Like through the marketplace?
With the crush. Like, I think as an app developer, you can get that information back, that there's some runtime information sent back, just so that you can go in there and see these kind of reports and things like that. And I thought that, reading that was kind of nice, and that's kind of cool, because then it's like, because not everybody's going to fill out the trouble report or the bug link, you know? And then you can kind of get ahead of them and like, hey, you start seeing people have these issues, and before somebody's actually emailed you to tell about the issue, you can look into that. Speaking of Gateways, so Gateways is your current project. Is that out yet?
No, it's not out yet. I'm hoping to release a beta of the game very soon, actually. It's officially due for release on the 22nd of June, which isn't long after the release of Shuggy. I might be trying to pile things on a bit much at the moment.
So, is this going to come out? Okay, so you are going for an Xbox Live Indie game release.
Yeah, it's another XNA game. So it's going to be on Xbox Live Indie Games, but I'm also planning on doing my own PC release, so I'll be able to download it from my website. I would quite like to get the game on Steam. It has been submitted to Valve for getting put on Steam, but I've yet to hear anything yet. Hopefully once I've got Shuggy on there, they'll make it a bit easier to get other games on.
Now looking at the game, just scrolling through here, I noticed that it says pre-orders are up, and that they're doing like $10 for the pre-order.
Yeah.
How are you going to handle the indie game release? Are you going to price the indie game release at like $5 and just max it out, or?
I don't know. It's kind of difficult on indie games because obviously, games at $5 don't tend to sell that well.
But at the same time, it's hard to justify a PC price. PC version, in fact, so I've been thinking about our game that we're entering for Dream Build Play, maybe. I don't know. 50-50 shot whether there's a game to enter in the next 3 weeks here. But the fact of like, okay, so if we get this into Greenbelt Play and looking at all these different PC channels that are opening up, like, I'm going to assume we're not going to get Steam. We don't have a background, we know. But, you know, looking at the other ones, like, I don't want to put up this game for $1 on the web, because that just seems ridiculous, and that's not going to help us at all, and why bother for $1?
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with $5, you know, and that means, like, should we also make it $5 on the Xbox to not price gouge the PC edition, knowing that we're going to doom any chance of sales if we do that on the Xbox?
Right. And it's kind of weird because there's almost two different economies going on there. Like, you know, the pricing for you know, PC games is different than pricing for Xbox games is different from pricing for Xbox Live Indie games. So, or like XBLA games versus XBLAG.
I mean, the second option to that is to cripple or enhance the PC version. You know, cripple the Xbox version or enhance the PC version in some way to where it's like, yeah, this is $1 here because this has half the content, you know, and the full game on PC has the full content, and then
you get into weird situations like, well, you want to also update the Xbox games.
You want to update them both. You're not really making fans of the game company with practices like that, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you're a step away from, like, on-disc DLC at that point.
Well,
practices.
and you don't want to... You want the experience to be the same on both ends. You don't want to force people to play it on one versus the other if they want everything. To be fair, I think the PC port will, you know, because of issues like testing on different platforms, is going to... Like, you're going to have to put in the extra time for that. So, as a developer, like, from the business side, you can justify that, the price increase.
Yes.
From the gamer side, you know, they don't see a difference, so...
They don't. I can tell you that I've already flipped the Reach profile flag on Captain Dubstep. You know, hopefully we won't have to flip it back. We won't do anything, but at least we'll hit the build error as soon as we do something that we can't do early, and then not... Because, like, my fear was, like, we would go on and have, like, a 4K by 4K texture at some point, because we just threw it all into one sprite sheet. And I think in Reach, you can only have a 2K by 2K texture. That's the max dimensions. And if I hadn't flipped that flag, I could have really easily made that mistake, because I'm a pre-optimizer guy. I'm a guy who I send Dylan little chats and text, like, in the game of, like, I noticed you made this object a property on the class, and then you're calling this object 15 times in the draw loop, and that's technically going to become a function, and so that's going to be a function with a function call overhead and going to return it. Yes, it's a class, and there's a reference at this point, but there's not a real good case for not just go ahead and make that a field, and then, you know, we'll deal with it that way. Even though Captain Dubstep is running at 60 frames per second without batting an eye on the Xbox, and we're nowhere near it, and...
Well, it's so that we could scale up, I guess.
Yeah, but I'm always, like, seeing those little things and making those little things and, like, you know, dropping down and, like, you know, hey, there's some strings here, let's get rid of these, or let's make them constants. Overly so. Like, I acknowledge that I am doing that well ahead of any issues, because Captain Dubstep right now is, what, 10 megs as a CC game file, 8 megs as a CC game file, and it's taking up, like, 16 megs in RAM, I think is what our current usage is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to go
on the
too
360.
far overboard.
Yeah, we have a lot of room to, like, breathe here and not worry about it. I will say, because we're using Tiled, and we're using Nick Gravlin's Tiled engine for XNA as content pipeline, and Nick did a whole, like, base class hierarchy system, and there is just 600 objects being boxed and unboxed per frame because of this. And that pisses me off to high hell. Like, seeing the 600 boxing and unboxing objects, like, that annoys me, even though it's not affecting anything. We are allocating no garbage per frame because of it, but I just see that number in the performance analyzer, and I'm like, son of a bitch.
What's funny is, like, early on, when I was making some major changes, and I put in, like, an allocation class that would basically call, you know, like, check the memory allocated, check it against the last one, and anytime it increased, it would print something to the debug window, and I could see, you know, like, where it was actually happening. And I was like, wow, like, a lot of the things I'm doing is just, like, it's superstitious. Like, you know, it's not creating any overhead, but I'm afraid that maybe it might, so...
Yeah, you definitely, before you go down the assumption road, you need to measure first and make sure that you're actually doing the things you think you do. Because sometimes you could even write code that should throw garbage. Yeah. I think the classic example is, like, if you allocate a struct every draw frame, the .NET is smart enough sometimes that, like, in the IL and the optimizer, it will go ahead and just reserve that space for you, and you're not actually creating and destroying it. You're reusing something because the garbage collector will just know, like, hey, this is going to come at a set interval, so I'm just going to go ahead and create a field in garbage collection world for this to go in and out of. But the thing you got to watch out on is that the Xbox and the PC are not the same logic, so what may work one on the other may not on their own. I think in our case with Captain Dubstep, the big thing that we're going to have issues on the PC with that we will not have on Xbox is sound. Sound is completely handled differently on the Xbox than it is on the PC, and we can get away with a lot more dynamic sound and things like that happening on the Xbox before we ever hit a performance issue, whereas on the PC, who fucking has a sound card anymore? Like, who has dedicated hardware for handling sound? So that'll be interesting when we look at a PC port, and I want to do a PC port. I do down the road, when we get this done, want to bring it to PC, because we have more options there and more people can check out the game. But that'll be interesting to see how well we can handle it. And right now, because we're using Exact for our audio, we're not on good terms with the PC. There's a lot of misconceptions about how unperformant Exact is, and I've done a lot of profiling and testing, and Exact on the Xbox can run fine garbage free. Like, if you know what you're doing and you initialize your stuff properly, right now I'm running 8 simultaneous audio samples. So essentially the way that we work in Captain Dubstep is to keep the music in sync is all music tracks play at the same time, and they play on a loop so that they are all running constantly, and then I manipulate them by bringing up the volume on separate channels. So I'm constantly changing the volume on one of 8 tracks, bringing it up, bringing it down, and I can do this without causing any overhead whatsoever on the Xbox, just fine at 8 tracks. And I will probably be able to double the length of our music tracks and double the numbers of our tracks. Again,
I wonder if it doesn't fully process it or something.
What's that?
I just wonder if it doesn't fully process it or something. I wonder if it checks the volumes at 0 or something and doesn't do everything that it would normally do if the sound was actually being played. I'm just wondering how they do that.
Well, I do know that if you've ever gotten into the setting, the affinity, the thread affinity, right? So you can set, there's 6 cores. There's 3 processors and 6 cores available on your Xbox, but like, you cannot set to core 0 and 2, and I believe that 2 is running sound. So by default, 2 is already on another, sound is already on another thread, on another core, and it's one that you can't actually interact with from XNA directly. So that's just a magic benefit. That's just an awesome thing. It's like scaling, you know, it's like scaling is magical on the Xbox. So go ahead and scale your sprites, because that hardware is dedicated to scaling. You either use it or you don't. You're not going to gain any processing power back by not using it.
Yeah.
So don't worry about scaling images. And so I know that is how something is doing. And I've read that people have taken the Xbox up to like 250 concurrent sound instances without performance degradation. And like the guy who wrote that in the AppHub forum said like this thing will just bog my PC and bring it to its knees if I try to do it on the PC. But on the Xbox, for however they've done that, it's some optimized hardware. So that'll be our PC port issue. Definitely will be the sound. And we may have to... We've abstracted the sound away from everything else so that we could rewrite the entire sound engine, and, you know, we may have to come up with something else on the PC.
Yeah.
But when we're on the PC, we'll have the full .NET framework at our hands, and we may be able to come up with a better, you know, instance. And I know if James Johnston is listening to this podcast, he is yelling at me right now because he's all about ditching Exact now and using the new sound effect stuff that was introduced in XNA 4. And being that he's the guy that wrote eMuse, you know, I grant him knowledge to say that, you know, it's going to be the more performant and the better things, but...
Yeah, if we were doing more with music, I think that might make sense, but, like, this
Exact
this
is
works
so
for
easy
what
to
we're
drag
doing.
and drop, man, and
And plus, even on the PC, like I said, I've had problems running with dual monitors versus single monitors. I think there may be some video issues, and I've run Performance Analyzer. I think... Like, when we move it to PC, that's when we go into TiledLib, because that's, like, a huge chunk of the
performance.
I think, but it may just be that it's drawing so many different sprites that's it, but it'll probably not just be audio. It'll probably be, like, across the board. There are things we can do, but... Again, it's on Xbox, we can just leave them as they are, because they work.
All right, let's move into news here. Let's move into some news of the week. I didn't bring up that many articles, but there were some things. I actually was kind of going to skip this week because I knew we had David coming on, and I wanted to talk a lot about the publishing. But there was a couple good things this week. So one is that GameSalad is coming to Windows, and they have a beta up now. So it's not launched, but it is a beta. Now, I know our code-heavy fans won't have much interest, because GameSalad is essentially like a game maker for Mac, but much better polish to this tool. Game Maker just seems kind of janky, you know? Like, there's a lot of, like, just weird Windows 3.1 feel. Like, this thing feels like this is dated and old and written in some abstract windowing library, you know, whereas GameSalad is a Mac app, and it's written really nice. And I've pointed people that I've run into casually that are like, you know, I want to get into iPhone stuff and all that, and I have a Mac and all that, and I was like, yeah, check out GameSalad. And I've had them come back and like, yeah, I played with GameSalad last night. I got my little Pog game going, and, you know, so, I mean, it is a drag and drop script objects framework. It is by no means on par with something like, say, as Unity, as far as what you can do with it, but it's real simple, it's real 2D, and it's real lightweight. Seeing that it comes to Windows and supports, will support Windows as a runtime environment, to me makes it a contender now, even for us, if we have some lighter game ideas.
Yeah.
Especially because we can hand it off to an artist and say, okay, you can mess with most things here, so go ahead and like flesh out all your level and tweak some values and feel this out, and then contact me when you need some custom behaviors that aren't dialogue options, and then I'll get in there with the scripting interface and extend it. So I think that's pretty good news. Adds another option. This is an interesting article here that Apple permitted Zombies Run iOS dev to take pre-orders. And I went and I read and I dug down into the whole details of...
Is this the alternate reality game?
So, yes, this is the while you're running and jogging iPhone app. You have, like, zombies chasing you or something. And okay, so I didn't read a lot about the app other than it was like some weird alternate reality zombies game. Had a great Kickstarter. They asked for 15,000. They get 75,000, and they pre-sold 3,000 copies of the game on iOS because that was the main target, the main platform. Which it's not on there. It's not approved. Apple apparently gives you 50 tokens per revision, so it's kind of limiting.
It's kind of like Xbox Live Indie games, though.
I didn't mention this. It just popped up in chat about Game Salad. Yes, Game Salad is free, and then the pro version is $300. So there's a chart in what you can and can't do, but basically you can get enough to evaluate with the free version, and then $300 is the pro version. So again, it's like a game maker level.
Yeah.
Sorry for leaving that out. So on the zombies, what they did was they made two versions of the game. And one version of the game, you entered an unlock code, and then it unlocked the full game. The other version was $7.99 in the app. So for all the backers, they had all the backers log in, set their code. So all the codes were unique. So if the code ever got reused, they would see, and they could just shut down that code. And then uploaded it. Now, they did tell Apple in advance what they wanted to do and how they wanted to do it, and Apple worked with them to create that. So they didn't try to game the system. They were very upfront with Apple, and Apple was very receptive. They also said, like, Apple employees were backing the project, and they had fans at Apple, and that helped.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know this is going to be a given that you can do this, but they went to Apple, and Apple said, okay, but you also, like, if you're going to do this, it's fine, but the other app, you have to have some content for people to download. It's a free app, so, you don't have to have much. So, they put in, like, lore data and background on the game and background on the world and maybe, like, some updates and things like that for this other version of the game in there. But, it was kind of cool to see that Apple would work with them. Whereas one of the games that we'll get to this week actually has to explicitly call out except Microsoft. Yeah. And we'll get to that one.
But I mean, as it gets bigger, as Kickstarter gets bigger, Apple's going to have to, you don't want to be the only platform that people, say, well, we can't provide you with a free copy if you back us. But yeah, that's pretty cool to see that.
Next news article that I've got up, some props to Mommy's Best Games. They continue to see some pretty good success. They started out and had some really good games on Xbox Live Indie Games, and then they've gone on to have bigger and bigger success. And Serious Sam, so they did Serious Sam Double D. I still think the commercial, go into Steam and watch the Serious Sam Double D Gunstacker commercial. It still cracks me up. I still, like, if I start it, I have to watch the whole thing. I think it's exactly how indie should advertise, Like, there's a little bit of gameplay footage in there, but it is braggadocio, the entire thing, and it's hilarious. They're going to bring Serious Sam Double D to XBLA. So they've kind of gone full circle. So the Serious Sam Double D was started by the guys at, who's the studio that makes Serious Sam? But now Devolver, I guess. They went out and they hired the Devolver Digital as a publisher, and to market Serious Sam 3, they went out and they contracted 3 indie games to do 3 Serious Sam games. Do whatever you want in the Serious Sam universe, and we're going to put these out ahead of Serious Sam 3 to kind of remind people about the Serious Sam series of games and just get, out there. And Serious Sam Double D actually created a life of its own. Like, it got real popular, and then, got on Steam, did a lot of sales there, really successful, people loving it, and now Devolver's come back, they're like, we want to take this and make this a full-on XBLA release, basically, it's kind of cool. It's almost like, it's like a nice version of Call of Duty and Modern Warfare,
Nice
Yeah, instead of like Activision going like, we're gonna put one of these games out every year, so Team B start making another Call of Duty game, and TA will make this Call of Duty game, and we'll have one every year, and you guys still have 2-year dev cycles, right?
Yeah.
This was just more of kind of a nice like, hey, well now there's a Serious Sam mainline, and now there's Serious Sam Double D, and it's gonna be called Serious Sam Double D XXL, because they're gonna charge more for it, I think, and
Use
they're
all
gonna add
the letters.
exactly, because there wasn't enough acronyms in that. But basically, it's kind of cool because they were a marketing promo game at first. They weren't,
They became.
and so they had to cut things they wanted to do. You had to stay on a smaller budget. Now they have more budget and more time to go back and put in the things that they would like to put in, and the gun stacking. So the whole big thing on that is that. Instead of like having all these different guns in your inventory and you switch them out, why not just fire them all at once? And you have the gun stacker where the guns literally stack on top of each other, and you build new guns. And so it's like they had, I think, 4 guns to begin with. Now they have 6 gun types or something, but there's like alternate versions so you can upgrade the guns in different ways. So basically they've come up now with like 36 combinations of gun stacking, with this. So, and I don't even think that counts out like just 36 variants to one gun, and then you could stack those 36 variants up to like 4 or 5 high. So it's really good news. Mommy's Best Games. I still got to get Nathan Fouts at some point on the show just to come and talk. They've always done good games, and they're just like game developer. Like, go in and find Mommy's Best Games on there. I mean, Shoot One Up and Explosion Aid. Is really good, and then their earlier one, why am I spacing on that? What's their Weapon of Choice, which was also an early Dream Build Play title, I believe. I don't know if that was first year or second year, but that was an early one. That one I remember seeing. Well, you know what? That may not have been an early Dream Build Play. That may just have been an early Xbox Live indie game.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I remember seeing Weapon of Choice like on the service forever. I just launched there. I don't know. All right. It's time for the Kickstarter run. Before we get into Kickstarter run, I got some Kickstarter news. Before I get into Kickstarter news, David, anything you wanna bring up and talk about before we? Because usually we run through the Kickstarters and then we kind of end the show.
Okay. How much time have you got? What's it looking?
We got as much time as you want. We've stopped trying to. I just any topics.
Go as long as it goes.
Well, I guess I wouldn't mind directing people towards gateways. I suppose I talked a bit about Shuggy coming to PC, but haven't really ranted on about gateways, which is my entry into Dream Build Play this year.
Oh, it is your entry. Are you up?
Yeah.
Are you up on xnalastdance.com?
I'm not yet, actually. No, I do need to get myself on there. I did hear you talking about that in the last podcast.
Part of that is, Dave Boyles is one of the guys that we were discussing when we launched that, and part of it he was saying is that when the Dream Build Play went up and the finalists were announced and people were talking about the games, Microsoft didn't provide any page of like, here's contact links, so sites that want to cover Dream Build Play games can just run down the list and contact these developers and get in touch with these guys. So we'll definitely, even after the entries go, just kind of like, hey, just get in here, even if you don't have a blog or anything, get in here for a database, because we're going to try to hit several of the indie sites, and with help of Dave Boyles too, maybe some of the larger sites, and hopefully we'll get some joysticks and Kotakus to check in. And they may not talk about Dream Build Play or XNA Last Dance. I don't care about that. They may like see a game like Gateways and go, oh, this is the Smudged Games, The Adventures of Shuggy coming to Steam game, and talk about that and increase in exposure. And then also, I think we have plans for that post Dream Build Play as well to make that kind of an indie games press system. I read an article about Indie City. Indie City did an interview with a bunch of game journalists who cover indie games, and one of the questions they asked was, are you using sites like Games Press to get indie information? And they basically all said no. Like, it has no way to filter and sort out the indies, and there's just so much noise in the system that we don't use it at all for our indie, stuff. We find them other, which is kind of shocking, because I thought, this is more of an industry thing. But if the indie press sites aren't covering it, then, it's like, maybe there's need for an indies press version of Games Press, that allows indie developers to get out there, do press releases, and just have a coordinated spot for, like, here's my screenshots, here's my video, here's information on my game. They did say they liked that aspect of Games Press. So they were like, we don't find out about them through Games Press, but sometimes it's nice to go to Games Press and be able to get all the assets.
Right,
for
like a press kit.
Yeah, like a press kit, and just know that that's all in one spot. So what is on Gateways? So it looks like you are a 2D platformer, and there seems to be some grass tiles, so you look really good for odds.
It's mainly, as most people will probably recognize it, as like a 2D version of Portal, I guess. It does work slightly differently. It's set in one sort of open world, Metroidvania style, as people would say. But you get different types of gateway guns. I always call them gateway guns. I know everyone's going to think of them as portal guns, but I've got so used to now calling them gateway guns. That's what I call them. But you get other ones.
Oh, wow, that is an awesome effect. So I was playing the video for the stream, and where he just opens the portal, and now he can see through it.
Yeah, that was one of the things which I did early on, which I thought, that looks really cool. I was kind of wondering, how would you do a Portal type game in 2D? Put with that idea of the view kind of changing depending on where the actual character is, so you can then sort of see the view through and walk past. But it does a few other different things as well. You get a standard gun, like the type of gun that you get in Portal, but then you get other ones, which occurred to me, what if you had two portals of different sizes, and if you actually walk through one, a small one, and come out with the big one, then you would actually change in size as well. So basically the kind of the view through it sort of maps the world to being a kind of a smaller version or a larger version, so you can actually change size depending on which way you go through.
And then that wasn't enough for you, so then you added time travel.
Yeah, time travel is probably one of the main things. I should stop doing time. There's time travel stuff in Shuggy as well. I did Time Slip back in '99. I got to be honest, I'm getting sick of doing time travel games. It just seems to be a thing that comes up continually with me. But when I had the idea of doing this, naturally it made me think, I wonder what would happen if you had one portal connected up to another one at a different time. Would that actually work? Is there a way of doing that? And so, I managed to sort of think it through and had this idea that, if you put a portal down on one wall and then you sort of wait for a minute and then you put down the second portal on a different wall, when you actually look through that second portal, you're looking through out of the first portal at the time that the first portal was placed. So it's basically, if you waited 60 seconds to place the second portal, going through, you would travel back in time 60 seconds. It's quite a weird effect. It's all these are introduced very gradually throughout the game, because a lot of people that have looked at the game have kind of thought, whoa, there's a lot of stuff going on there. And I think a lot of people are kind of worried that it might be a bit difficult to actually understand what the hell's going on.
Maybe you should take the Fez approach and let everybody believe it's just a 2D platformer until it comes out, and then realize, it has nothing to do with the platforming. We couldn't understand this game, so we didn't even tell you what it was about.
Yeah, I mean, I've got there's lots of stuff in the game to try and explain everything that's going on, and everything gets gradually introduced when you start the game. It's basically just a 2D platformer. You just move left and right and jump, and then you very quickly get the first gateway gun, and then you get the other ones, the ones that let you change size, and there's another one that lets you change the gravity as well, so you can walk on walls or on ceilings, and then the time travel one. So hopefully it's not going to be too difficult for people to actually understand when they're playing. I've also, one of the cool things that I put in the game, again, because I was worried about this thing of people not really being able to sort of understand the game fully, or being able to, or worried that people might get stuck in places. There's these help points throughout the game, kind of like a help point beside every puzzle. It's much more puzzle-based than action-based. And these help points let you use the items that you've collected in the game, the power orbs, the things that are just dotted around everywhere. And you can actually spend power orbs at those help points, and the game will tell you whether you can complete this puzzle or not, given your sort of power-ups at the time. So yeah, if you need the time travel gateway gun to be able to solve a puzzle, if you spend your orbs at this help point, then it will say, actually, no, you just need to find something else. There's no point trying to complete this anymore. And then if you can complete the puzzle, but you still can't quite figure out how to do it, then you can spend more of the power orbs, and it actually shows you a solution to the puzzle using the in-game engine. So it's basically using like a series of key presses, and actually plays through the solution. So I'm kind of hoping that with these things, no one will ever actually get completely stuck in the game, because it's one of the annoying things with a puzzle platformer like this, is that you can get so far and then you can't figure out where you're supposed to go next or exactly what you're doing, or you just hit a brick wall basically.
Yeah,
so I'm hoping I'll solve that problem.
I think slowly, as a whole, game designers in the industry is getting over the fact of it's wrong to tell the player how to solve the game, right? And that we're understanding, I think we're getting to a point where we understand, like, okay, this is a bad holdover from arcades that wanted you to keep sucking in quarters, and we want people to play the game. And if telling you the answer to this one puzzle is going to get you to finish the entire game because it's the one spot you got stuck, then I'm going to go ahead and tell it to you. I think Machinarium did an excellent job where they have, I don't know if you've played Machinarium.
No, I haven't.
It's a 2D adventure game, and it's really got a cute art style, and it's lovely and in that respect as well. But I mean, there's a lot of 2D adventure inventory puzzles where, okay, you got to get the right item, and then on this screen, you got to use the right item in the right place to activate this door or whatever. And sometimes, because it's a 2D puzzle, you don't realize everything that you can interact with, and you kind of get that pixel hunting thing and so that. So what they did for the hint system is there's a book in the top right I think you can click on, and it will open up this hint system. And I think the first one is just a vague hint. Just a vague, like, you know, you need to look at the water or something. But then the second one requires you to play this mini game. And it's this little key that starts, it's this little side-scrolling shooter that you play, and you're flying a key, and you have to avoid everything and get it to fly into the lock at the end. And then you get the second level hint, right, which gives you a little more detail. And then there's a third level hint that you have to play the key game, and I think at this point it might take 30 to 45 seconds to get from beginning to end of the shooter. And if you die in the key game, you start all the way back. So it's kind of interesting because the third one will pretty much explain the answer to you, okay?
Yeah.
But there's a little game in front of it.
You've got to earn it, though, yeah.
And you got to earn it, and it's enough to keep it to, like, you don't get addicted to the answers, right? Because it's not right there, so you don't get addicted to that little, like, I'm going to click it and just find the answer as soon as I hit a stumble. Yeah. Because, you know, it's like, oh, well, okay, it's going to take, I'm going to have to go through hint 1, 2, and 3, and I'm going to have to play this mini game, and that's going to take a few minutes, so I'm going to spend my time trying to solve it before I finally get to a point where I feel like, all right, I don't know what you want me to do here. And then, of course, you know, you always feel dumb when you see the answer. You're like, oh, that, yeah, obviously. I can't believe I forgot to, I have a fan blade. There was a fan here. Why didn't I put the fan on the fan blade? I have no idea how I missed it, but I did.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea to have the solutions to games inside the games themselves, but yeah, unlocked in some way like that. Because I mean, people are just going to look up FAQs anyway on games. So I kind of think, if people are buying a game, why not give them, you know, all the stuff that they need in that game, because they can just find out anyway.
If you're building an indie game, the odds are, you know, people may not have a FAQ available that they can go to.
And it's not likely that you're going to be fed in any case and have people crowdsource their answers.
Yeah.
That's a flash in the pan kind of deal.
Or you could be more McCurry. I mean, there's extensive documentation on the FAQs on.
I think there's a different reason
extensive
for that.
documentation on pervs everywhere.
All right, so yeah, Gateways looks great. We're fucked, Dylan. We don't have a shot.
We don't have to.
We're fighting
always
for.
We just have to
rare.
place.
We're fighting for 19th.
There's a lot of good.
Yeah, as I see games closing in and getting closer, I start to get more and more nervous about our odds.
The quality of play does seem to go up and up every year. I mean, it just gets better and better. It's quite scary.
I don't know, too, if, like, there's 20 places per platform or there's 20 places total.
Oh,
Because they're doing phone this year as
like
well?
some of them will be phone, some
Yeah.
of them may be Xbox, and you can't tell. It's just who's ever like you're competing against. You may be competing against phone games for the same spots.
Well, considering how lazy sometimes Microsoft can be.
And again, I think our game would get there. It's just that I don't know that we're going to hit it in the time that we got left.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess it depends on how much we cut it down for Dream Build Play, I think, at this point. Or it may. We'll see.
I'm really just relying on the fact that they're going to watch the videos more than they play the games, because all judges of contests seem to be, we fire the game up for 2 minutes and we watch the video and then we judge based on that.
care.
Yeah.
That's sad.
So, all right, let's a Kickstarter. We talked about, I think, this Little Monsters game on a previous Kickstarter, and I questioned it because, you know, there was just no information on this game and a bunch of grand claims, but, you know, no art, no games or something, and basically the Kickstarter users, some of the concept art, Kickstarter users found out that concept art came from other game project sites. So, like, the little bit that they did have on there was from other sites and all of that, and vetted them out, and then not Kickstarter, the creators canceled the project, and it kind of got labeled as a scam. So, this is interesting because the other one we talked about a few weeks ago was not a scam, it was just a very new person to game design. It was just really the...
Are you talking about the Ron Paul project?
No, not the Ron Paul. This was the one that the guy just came in and said, hey, I've got a great idea for a game, and I need a designer, a programmer, and everything to make this, and had no information on the game available. He was the one that said, I can't talk about it right now, so I'll tell about it later. That just turned out to be, like, a noob, a naive, you know, like, no, you're going to have to put some information up.
I would imagine Kickstarter works like anything else. Like, if you're lying, you tend to give more details than you actually need to give.
Yeah,
that's how you
exactly.
tell,
So, I mean, that was that one. And he also pulled his Kickstarter when, people went back and, so that turned out to be genuine. This did not look genuine. This did not at all. Next Kickstarter news this week. EA offers free Origin launch for Kickstarter. So I don't know what the EA Origin royalty rate is. I'm going to assume 30%. I don't know if it's lower or higher. But essentially for the first 90 days of sales, they're going to waive that.
If you came from Kickstarter.
If you came from Kickstarter. If you have a successful Kickstarter. Wasteland 2 was announced that they will, take advantage of this and they will be on there and all of that. The comments on the Wasteland 2 Kickstarter was basically, you better fucking give me my DRM free game. Under no circumstances will I ever install that piece of shit called Origin. Burn in hell for even supporting EA. We want, you have violated me. People were like,
Internet
I want a
rage.
refund. And it's like, a refund of what? This is not a pre-order sale, dude. You Kickstarted something, which again is the mass misperception people have of Kickstarter, right?
It's pre-orders. Like
it is pre-orders, but it's not pre-orders in which you can go in and get a refund for. Can you stop that at least? At least grab that from her. Thank you.
So she doesn't fall over.
So it's nice that Origin would do this, and it's a sign that EA realizes that they have a lot of catching up to do.
Yes.
I think it might actually be good because they're out there and they do this Kickstarter thing because things are going digital. Talented game designers are showing they do not need publishers with this Kickstarter thing. We got another one this week that I'll mention.
They don't need publishers, but they need some sort of channel that they can use.
Well, they don't need,
sell their game.
They can use Steam.
Yeah.
And they can go to App Store, and eventually the console manufacturers will not require publishers as well, because right now the console manufacturers are not doing well. The numbers that have come out lately, they're not doing so hot. And NPD numbers are misleading because they're not really reporting digital well yet. So it's like, yeah, everything sucks, but you're not counting that Minecraft sold 1 million copies, in the first week. That's $20 a copy, $20 million, in 1 week. So digital, is really taking off right now. And people are starting to come to expect that. And Kickstarter's replacing the funding model, and so publishers are going to have to adapt. That EA is willing to do this shows that, hey, there's some people at EA that are trying to, adapt and all that. And I think it may start opening serious conversation with the problem with the Origin DRM is it is extremely invasive and monitors your entire computer system. So it's basically Warden.
Right.
Only it's not WoW. So people tolerate Warden because it runs when WoW runs, and
there's no other way you can get that game.
Exactly. I mean, the level of the arms race that is cheating in an MMO is so high that they really have to do that. And they're Blizzard, and people love Blizzard, so they trust Blizzard not to screw them over.
Oh, that's one thing. I've never used Origin, but I wonder how truly evil it is. Like, how much worse is it than running Steam? And if they get in on Kickstarters, can they show, like, the average user that, hey, we're probably not as evil as you think we are?
Given the reaction to this, and the reaction last week to the EA Indie Bundle, they have no trust or credit from fans. Like, even if they did something perfectly nice, they would be kicked for it at this point. They have a long way to go to recover. And this isn't always true. I mean, the days of like EA, it's in the game. I used to love EA. I used to think they were awesome. They were great. Now, like, nothing to do with them. So they could recover, and I think it'll be good because I think it'll come back and they'll do this. Now, I didn't bring up the article. Let me see if I can get the link so I remember to put it in show notes. But the other information that happened the other Kickstarter information, here it is. I got the article up. So we talked last week about the Tentacle Bento game on Kickstarter. And, it was kind of like, hey, I saw this on Kickstarter, and I guess I got to point this out. So essentially, it was a card game in which you play a tentacle monster at a high school of girls. You're actually disguised as a girls, but it's just a collectible card game, and your goal is to capture the girls. They had all this, and it's trading in on the tentacle monster and the tentacle porn trope of anime, right?
Yeah.
And and I even said, like, hey, this is a joke of like tentacle rape. It's like this is what it was. And we kind of left it there. Some blogger went off on how this was the worst thing on the internet ever. Worst thing ever, right? It is the worst thing ever. Do you know where I was going with that?
No.
Okay, I'll leave that one alone. So you're still clean in that respect ever. But some of the friends of the podcast may have known what the worst possible thing ever.
I want to know what the worst possible thing ever
It's
is.
something that Rarity would say.
This assumes I know something about My Little Pony.
Hey, well, you got there at least to My Little Pony.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, he went off on it at that level, and it's like if you delve down into it, it is a humor of a subject matter that obviously you don't take into kids, but
Right.
the depth at which it was done in the game was very humorous and playful. Okay, we're talking about like cosplay level where like somebody cosplays up as Sailor Moon and somebody cosplays up as a tentacle monster and they go to Dragon Con.
Yeah.
Right? That's the level this game was at. Like, we're mocking and making fun of this trope. And then Kotaku runs the article of that this is just awful. Basically, they read this guy's blog, do no effort, dig into it, because it wasn't like just some up and start nobody. Like, the people who are creating this do minifigurines, they're big in the anime world, they support a lot of things in that. But they then, like, stoked the internet rage, and then Kickstarter canceled the project. Like, Kickstarter went in, sent an email to everybody, we're sorry, this is not acceptable, violates our terms of use, improper for Kickstarter, canned. Kickstarter doesn't actually give a reason. And then...
because you have to, like, guess.
Then what follows from that is now you have internet rage at... you have jumped the gun, you have over-censored without looking, you didn't handle this, and so now you've stirred up another hornet's nest and caused a massive number of people. Now, I don't know the financial numbers because it's hard for me to be able to get that information, but a lot of people have I just went through and canceled all of my Kickstarter pledges to all these projects because I am not going to support this. And then now it's worth mentioning that I think the project asked for $10,000, and at the time they canceled it was up to $30,000, so it was triple funded at this point. And they were able to continue posting comments and updates to the canceled project. So the company behind it set up a PayPal page and hey, we're still going to do this. Here's the PayPal page. You can pre-order. We will honor your Kickstarter levels over here. So just come do it over here. And then immediately, they almost got back to where they were at before. A lot of people are I've upped my level now.
Yeah, I imagine you actually get, the 10% of people who, when told something is bad, will support it even more.
Exactly. So where this winds up is more support for the Tentacle Bento game. So your moral outrage has backfired and made more people aware of it and made it even more enhanced editions and met more stretch goals. It'll be a larger game now. And now you have people pulling funding from other Kickstarter projects. And then you have, of course... Kickstarter has now opened itself up to, if you're going to be the moral arbiter of content, you're going to get shot at, because
yeah,
a lot of people started attacking them on their indie films, which are basically these highly risque, indie film, documentary type stuff's going on here. It's not porn, but...
it's close enough.
It's close enough. And
it's closer than this is.
Yes. And that's it. It's why are you saying this is not fine for the games when this indie film implies the same thing? Yeah. Why are you allowing this? And it's you guys have opened the floodgates.
A lot of the internet rage, though, that if you just scroll through comments on the project, was not, why are you allowing X but not Y? It was just how dare you? And that sort of internet rage, Kickstarter is going to have to go through this. Kickstarter is getting big. It's going to have to go, hit the point where the honor system isn't going to work anymore.
You cannot actually report a project. So there's a link at the bottom of the projects. And when I was going through the Kickstarters this week, I came across a game project that looked straight up scam to me. Okay?
Right.
It was asking for $50. It was funded by two people to $100, $50 each. Those two people just created their accounts the day the Kickstarter was released, and they funded each. They had funded no other projects. And then when I looked back at the thing, the company is of 2 people. And it looked like, okay, so you guys are just milking this to get any donations out of it. Like, you can't make a game for $50. So you're just going to collect whatever, and you threw in $100 just to look like people were supporting it. I want to report you to Kickstarter because I want Kickstarter to investigate those people who donated and see, are these the same people that created the project? You know, same IP, same account. This looks like a scam.
Bidding. Basically, it's going to be...
Yes. I want to report this for potential scam. There is no option to report on Kickstarter project for scam. You can report it for miscategorized, against terms of service, but, like...
Scam is a hard thing. I'm guessing scam is a hard thing for them to judge.
Like, I'm not going to cite, because if you hit the terms of service, it's like, cite the term of service, you know, that's against the Kickstarter. It's like, I'm not going to go through the Kickstarter and find your terms of service that says, no scams. Right? Like, there should be a fraudulent, like, suspected activity or something, you know, on there, or something like for this to be reported. And they don't actually have that. Like, I'd have to, like, the rewards are against the terms of service or something. Like, there's certain things you can't promise in a reward. It's funny. I could report a Kickstarter for being a charitable organization.
That seems ironic.
It does seem ironic.
Like, but you can't...
You can't have charities on Kickstarter, but it's funny that, like, I can't report a scam, but I can report a charity asking for money.
I assume a scam, something being a scam, that's something that's hard to prove. Like, there's not an objective thing that says, because you said this, we know that you are a scam. Like, there's only things that look suspicious. I'm guessing they're taking the kind of the rules lawyering route of, like, you know, you're going to bring up Al Capone on tax evasion charges.
Yes.
You know, that sort of thing. I don't know. It's going to go through some ugly situations like this before that all gets...
So, David, obviously you're doing pre-sales, and we've talked about how Kickstarter is really a vehicle for pre-orders, not so much funding for game development in most cases, for most. Have you considered it or thought about it?
Yeah, I mean, with obviously everyone seems to be going on Kickstarter now, so yeah, I've definitely considered it. I think my projects are quite far along just now, and I know a lot of people do put up projects that you pretty much know are going to be finished anyway, but people try and get a little bit of money out of Kickstarter. But I'd rather not do that. I think it's definitely something I would consider for the next project if I was going to do something else.
Now, this is a rationalization, so take it if you want it, leave it if you don't. But as I look at Kickstarter, my thought is it is marketing and pre-sales. So I'm taking pre-orders for my game. I put it up there for $10. You get the game, and then maybe some T-shirts and higher tiers at that. This is what I would sell the game for anyway. And that Kickstarter, a successful Kickstarter that, you know, asks for $15,000, gets funded to $30,000 or $35,000, could be the link that I need to send Valve to get me on Steam. So that's kind of the rationalization that I have for putting up a near-finished game on Kickstarter. Yeah, I don't really need the funding to complete the game because we're mostly there. If I think the funding would go to, like, so let's take Captain Dubstep as an example. I would love to take the funding and go up to SkillRex and say, I just had this awesome Kickstarter, and I have $15,000. Can I license your music and put SkillRex Dubstep in Captain Dubstep? Because that would be fucking amazing, you know? Am I in the realm of SkillRex licensing of music tracks, or am I still, like, you know, like way outside of it? And I don't think that would be actually that much money, because as big as he is in the dubstep world, I'm not licensing from, like, Will Smith, you know? And, you know, he might see it and go, that's an awesome freaking idea. That's dubstep in a video game. You know, I like that. So, you know, I will come up with new music or something. So I'd like to approach that. Obviously, you know, you can always hire, you know, art is always a great, like, I'm going to commission, you know, a great box art or something like that, you know. and things like that. So yes, I would invest back in the game the funds that were raised on Kickstarter. They wouldn't need to be the sustained development of Kickstarter, but the goal would be, let's have a successful Kickstarter. If we have a successful Kickstarter, let's use that in our email to Valve.
Yeah.
And say, hey, you know, we have this thing on Steam. We're going to ship the PC edition. All this is going to happen. Can we get on Steam now? And we have this built-in audience here, so we have some buzz. And because we have a successful Kickstarter, I think we're more likely to get press. I think it's very hard to get press on your Kickstarter while it's going on now, because that kind of got ruined. Like, Tim Schafer came and did it, and then they started turning to Kickstarter, and then everybody started throwing up a game on Kickstarter and flooding the press with, please cover my game. Yeah. And most of the press sites have just said flat out, we are not covering Kickstarter games, don't ask. Because it just got crazy. So they all just immediately go to the trash. But if you have a successful Kickstarter, then you could say, like, we have this successful Kickstarter, so we have done our guerrilla marketing. We are worth looking at it. So there's a rationalization. You can take it if you want it. Kickstarter.
Yeah, I wonder if you can actually use Kickstarter purely for taking pre-orders. Can you put up a Kickstarter that has $0 wanted for funding?
Well,
just say, yeah, I'll take whatever money I get.
I mean, this Kickstarter worked up that just said $50. A Kickstarter, we've talked about this in the past, Kickstarter does not seem to be vetting very hard the games that get on there. Because any game developer, any gamer really, can look at something and go like, this shouldn't be up there. You don't have a demo, you don't have a proof of concept, you don't have concept art, you have nothing.
And I think they're betting on they just won't get supported without that.
Kickstarter wants to take the tact of the community will fund or not fund. Now, I think if you go up there and ask for $0, I think the message you send to potential backers is, I'm kind of scamming this or trying to play the game. So I think I would ask for a reasonable $15,000 to $20,000, because I think in the minds of gamers, not reality, but the minds of gamers, that's what it costs for an indie game studio to make a game. And again, the minds of gamers I don't think are connected to reality in any way, shape, or form. But I think if you go in there and you ask for that number, and then looking at the ones that have been successful, looking at the ones that have, like Guncraft and things like that, that's kind of where they've asked for. So there's a lot of prior art in the $17,500 Kickstarter, request. And you can just say in there, I actually am of the opinion, and I got into a little conversation on this with Indie Gamer Chick on Twitter one time of like, I wouldn't actually explain what I'm going to use the money for. I would not tell you. Because you're not going to buy it based on what I tell you I'm going to use the money for it. You're going to buy it based on the marketing of the video and the concept of the game.
And if I go over, then what are you going to think?
Right, yeah. I think the one thing that you promise is you say, hey, these are my platforms, blah, blah, and blah, and that if we go over, then I will look at blah, blah. Usually this is going to be, my platform is PC and maybe Xbox or whatever, and then if I get more, I'm going to look at Mac, or maybe I'm launching PC and Mac, and then, like, if we go over and I get enough budget, then, yes, we're going to go to Linux. I would always make Linux a stretch goal, because I don't think you're going to get enough to make it worthwhile in that initial run.
Yeah.
But once you kind of hit that stretch goal, everybody seems to be expecting Linux gaming. I don't know what the true numbers on Linux gaming is. I don't know if it's a bunch of vocal minority who, I hate Microsoft and I don't want a game on anything but my open source Linux system and I want it all DRM free, and that's what's carrying it, or there's actually a strong contingent that you can make revenue off of, because like look at the Humble Bundle.
Yeah, they do Linux. So.
That Linux is always donating the highest, so it's like those people are clearly sending a message. With that, so I don't know what the case is going to be there on that one. All right, hold on, I'll get you up, but then Daddy's got to do Kickstarters, and you got to be quiet for the Kickstarters. All right. Okay, first Kickstarter we got up this week, and I need to say the names of them because I realize I forget to say the names because I'm showing the video.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's been horrible. I've done that like 3 weeks now where I forgot to say the names of the Kickstarters. Yeah, it's a banana. All right. It's a good banana. Okay. First one up. I backed this. Now, this is not a game Kickstarter. This is a video project Kickstarter. This is kind of the interesting... Yeah. This is kind of interesting, the difference between games and other medium. If you were to try to do a free-to-play game, forget it. Nobody backs a free-to-play game because they're not buying anything. And again, Kickstarter is pre-sale, so I can't... Games that are like, well, we're doing a free-to-play model, and it's like you'll get 20,000 space bucks or whatever our game currency is. Nobody backs these games, even when they look good. I think I even tagged one this week.
Well, free-to-play, like freemium... I think that always, especially because of the way it gets used on mobile and Facebook games, personally, like, it always feels kind of scammy. Like you're gonna put in a mechanic that's trying to get me to pay.
And without the game, I have no way to know how much 2,000 space bucks are worth.
Right.
You know,
it just seems questionable.
It does, and they don't get funded. So this game, this is not a game. This is a woman here. She's done this in the past on movies. I'm going to have to put you down if you can't be quiet. And she has done this on movies, basically analyzing the tropes of women in movies, the stereotypes that are done in movies. And she wants to do a 5-video series analyzing tropes of females in video games. And, you know, obviously I've said this before. I'm very pro... strong female role models in games. I mean, come on, I've got 3 daughters. This is not altruism, right?
Right.
And it's not like I'm saying we need to ban the Bayonettas, right? Or Chun-Li needs to be removed. What I'm saying is there needs to be alternatives. Like, we need to bring up more strong female role models in games. And they just, for the most part, don't exist. They really don't. And then in a few cases
well,
where
basically what she goes into, they're all archetypes. Even the quote-unquote strong female characters are unto themselves an unhealthy archetype.
Yeah, like, so the ones that she's... I'm gonna put you down now. The ones, okay, those are the stretch goals. So the ones, like, she's gonna get into, of course, is Damsel in Distress, which is like poking at Zelda and the Princess and Mario and all that, of like they exist only to be rescued, which to me is kind of the lowest of the insults, right? That's the least of the problems. The one that we were just talking about is what she's calling the fighting fuck toy, which is like, yeah, she's a strong female character, but she's Bayonetta, and the stronger she fights, the more naked she gets.
I was going to say, yeah, the only way a woman can show her strength is through sexuality.
Right.
There's no other way.
The sexy sidekick. Now, you know what? I'm going to give props to Gears of War 3, because they brought out the female characters of Gears of War 3. They become actual Gears themselves and are fighting alongside. At no point was it exploitative. Like, that was really solidly done. Other than you didn't get to play them.
Right.
They did a really good job, and even story-wise, okay, you're down now. Go to Mommy. Mommy's just playing her iPhone games anyway, so she can go find something else to do with you. Bye. Go see Mommy. So, Gears of War did a really great job of doing that, and even the storyline didn't have the female characters obviously falling over the male characters, with still having romantic tension plot lines. You know, because you could very tell, like, one of the women had feelings for one of the guys who had lost his wife in an earlier episode. So it's like, you feel for him, but he's obviously had this great loss, and, like, she can't make a move on him because he's dealing with the death of his wife and family, you know, and so she wants to be there for him, that kind of stuff. I think they did that really well. Gears of War 3, I solidly enjoyed. I recommend anybody to play that for the story and gameplay mechanics. It's a first-person shooter with cover mechanics at this point. It's Gears of War, but I think they did that well. Sexy sidekick, the sexy villainess, and then, of course, background decoration, where women are background decoration. And then So this thing was funded in a day, and then she posted some of the other areas that were more specific. You know, like I can do shows on these. Each one of these are about 20 minutes long on Voodoo Priestess, Tribal Sorceress, Women as Rewards, which I was talking about Alpha Squad. And like they're literally called trophies, you know, like you unlock them in the trophy room. The Mrs. Male character, I don't know what that is. Ugly equals evil, which of course, like if there's the evil or the awful, like, you know, it's the haggard old witch and, you know, she looks horrible. Man with boobs. I don't know what we're getting into.
I don't know
there.
what the difference between that and Mrs. Male
I don't, but maybe she's got these worked out.
Oh, okay.
And number 15,000, and I think it's going to be hit, like special to be announced if reached. So she might have something announced on that. So I back this. You know, I threw in $10, but the interesting thing is that they're going to be free videos. Like, and there's going to be multiple versions of the videos. There's going to be ones for kind of adult and gamer and raw conversation, and then there's going to be ones for middle school. You know, it's like these can be shown in a middle school. Yeah, so I think it's a good thing.
Educational.
Again, not coming from the point of it needs to change. It just like you need to have an alternative, guys. Like, and you're missing out on.
You're not going to change anything, and in fact, like I think there's probably people who will support this, and it's just like doing penance. It's not actually like you know.
And again, it's
anything.
like there needs to be an option. There's not an option right now. So it's not like you have to restrict the other things. Some of our other videos, like I watched one that she'd done on different movies and toys and things like that, was on Legos. And it's like, she's got like, there's like a playhouse set that's all pink and for the girls. And, you know, she's talking about if this house catches on fire, call all the boys because there's no female firefighters in the Lego universe. And if like it's time to eat, well, call the girls because there's no, you know, there's all these like female chefs and, you know, things like that. And there's
to be fair, it's Lego. Like there's not.
It is, but Lego is the worst of blue and pink.
Well, yeah.
You go down Legos, if it's for boys, it's all blues and grays. And if it's for girls, it's all pinks and purples and pastels.
Yeah.
This is, if you've never done it, go into Walmart or Toys R Us or go anywhere, stand back, look at the boy aisle, look at the girl aisle, and realize all blue, green, and gray, all pink, purple, and white, and pastel. And it's just, I mean, I've taken my daughters in, I've sat them down, and I've looked at that, and it's like, look, if you accept what people tell you you should be doing, and people will tell you you should be, you know, this isn't for girls and things like that, that will come up. This entire area is off limits to you now. And look at that. That is robotics. That is Legos. That is, you know, the Transformers. That is the combat units. Like, what do you have? You have playing house, taking care of babies, and dressing up dolls. That's all that's over in your aisle. Now I'm waiting for the My Little Ponies to come out in blue, green, and gray because they'll realize that one day, but...
No, I'm waiting for them to bring the My Little Brothers back and the My Big Brothers back. They were boy ponies too, damn it.
That's almost like defeating the purpose. Like, I think that would offend bronies.
No, it wouldn't, because those are G1, baby.
All right, now we're getting into a long show.
Yes.
Let's run through the actual other Kickstarters this week. And remember when I said there was going to be a Kickstarter that probably should get the moral outrage if we're going to moral outrage on...
I can already see from here...
Yeah.
Moral outrage.
So this is like an escape from the zombie world, and... It's like it's in a high school, but like everything drawn about her is pornographic. You know, everything drawn about the characters, every move she makes, like the tits extra shaking the ass. When you see the gameplay, it's constant
high school
upskirts.
Zombies, vaguely pornographic. There's an anime.
Yeah.
Already. This already exists.
High School
of the Dead.
High School of the Dead. Good lord, is that fan service anime.
Yeah, in the combination of violence and fan service, just no.
So, it surprisingly has not been funded as well as I would expect. Now it is a mobile game, so it is iOS. So that's always a detriment because people want to play games on PC. So I think, you know, Republic could not get funded on iOS. The most they could raise was about $75,000 before they had to announce a PC port. I think you PC, that's your audience on Kickstarter right now. So iOS is hard to do in Kickstart. But at the other point, you can't back things anonymously. So, like this one being much more to the point of, Tentacle Bento was referential humor and like another layer to it. There's no other layer to this.
Yeah, I was going to say, to be fair, though, Tentacle Bento is making fun of something that, like, Kotaku is well within its rights to point out, like, hey, maybe we ought to rethink this.
But now, if Kotaku is championing themselves as the rights of women to not be, objects, I expect the outrage article. And that's the floodgates that you've opened now. Like, if you're going to start making moral calls...
Well, if it's not successful, there's no point in outrage.
But it's the idea of
morally, yes, there is, but...
Right. It's like you shouldn't be outraging whether or not they're popular.
It's internet. It's all about image.
There is a Kickstarter level in which you will be invited to the party that they will have models dress up as the busty chicks in the game. So again, if we're going to moral outrage, let's be consistent.
The internet is a terrible, terrible place where you learn terrible, terrible things about humanity, terrible which is terrible. Oh.
Now this next one, Void Rim, a multiplayer turn-based strategy game, looks really, really in-depth, involved, great graphics. A multiplayer turn-based strategy game. They look like they have some novel twists on merging tower defense with collectible game card mechanics is I think the elevator pitch that I would give on this game. They can definitely pull it off, and this is not getting funded because this is going to be a free-to-play model, and they're offering you in-game currency as a reward.
Yeah.
I would my choice on this would be to just out and out make the game a $10 download or a $5 download game, and I think you would be Kickstarted on this because this thing looks great. And free-to-play is a great model, I think, but they're not successful on Kickstarter, and it's kind of a shame to see.
I imagine it's
not a lot of traction behind this.
I imagine it's like I can't remember who did it. There was an article out about freemium apps, like web apps and stuff like that, a while back that said for a lot of people freemium doesn't work because of most of your users are going to be free, and if there's never a reason to upgrade, like they work for the bigger people, and like the same is true if you're small enough that you need Kickstarter, freemium, you're probably too small for the freemium model to work for you.
Probably true. Or you definitely need to tie into a social network, like
right.
Facebook or something, and
right.
build an audience there. The next one, the Time Tribe, episodic time travel adventure games. I put this one up, not necessarily as a great game that I think players. This goes on for a long time before it gets to gameplay footage, and then actually wait. No, that didn't have any gameplay footage there. It's in the YouTube video. Again, launch your Kickstarter right into gameplay footage, guys. That's what we want to see. The time travel mechanic of the game is used to make basically an educational game that provides more interest to the kids playing it. So it's really coming from the attitude of, look, these educational games, these edutainment games are horrible, and we want to make some better ones. So it has a very Professor Layton type feel to it, of kind of like solve the puzzle, and then you have some voice acting dialogue and things like that going on back and forth. Voice acting sounds great. It looks really well polished. So I just wanted to point that one out. I was like, yeah, this looks like it would be a great game. There were a couple other educational focused games I saw this week. They didn't have the polish of this one, so I marked this one. But I don't know that they'll end up being successful because of their market, but it's good to see these getting traction on Kickstarters. This one does look like it's going pretty well, though. It's up to $5,000 and $25,000. All right. Next one up is World Realms. And this thing launched to $30,000 funding. So it just launched like crazy. And these guys made another game. The Kingdom of Loathing?
That is familiar.
Okay, that's not familiar to me.
I've never actually played it, but it sounds familiar.
So they made this game, but what their idea for this game is essentially a role-playing JRPG combat kind of game wherein you spell words to do spells. So like you do like a boggle type system, and then like the longer word that you make, the bigger attack that you get, and things like that. And so I was like, I'm not interested in that, okay? But there are a hard contingent of Word with Friends and these kind of word game players on mobile devices. And I think that's why this thing launched to $36,000 funding. So I don't think it's to the core gamer crowd is going to be interested in this. Yeah, the references and the tropes in there and the jokes in the video are really good. So these guys will be able to do really good jokes and writing in the game.
And also Kingdom of Loathing, I've heard the name, especially through a lot of conventions and stuff. I think there's kind of a small but very loyal fan base there.
Now, I think it's a PC target game. This would make sense to port to iOS. Is that one of they will add stretch goals? I'm trying to see if they said...
That would make... Especially if it plays like Words with Friends.
Yeah, but it looks like their initial launch is PC, which is good, because for Kickstarter, people are going to want to play it on PC. And then hopefully maybe, they'll go in. Now, they're looking for $100,000, so it's not a small chunk of change that they're asking for. But with the amount of voice acting and dialogue, I can totally see the need for that. And like I said, this thing launched at $30,000 funding, so looks good there. Metal Savior. See if Dylan can explain why I might put this one in the list.
I'm guessing because it's retro. Mechs.
Yes. Yeah, it's basically
a mech cockpit.
It is a mech cockpit. It takes forever to get into the gameplay of their video. There we go. So basically, this is a very arcadey SPS where you're playing a mech. Granted, I love mechs. This is not getting a lot of funding. And it's not successful, and anybody else would have probably skipped over this project, but I like the art style, and it's mechs, so yes, I'm in it. The
funding is all you, isn't it?
I probably will back it. I probably will go in and back it, and hopefully it'll get fun. But it's not scratching my mech itch in terms of it's the old school Mech Warrior, Mech Simulator games. Right, this is very much the new gen of Mech Assault, Hawking, what Hawking's going to be, of FPS in a mech clothes. But I'm kind of interested. And, they got gameplay up and they had great graphics, so they can definitely execute on it. $50,000 is going to be a stretch goal. This is going to be a hard goal for these guys to hit with this project, I think, because... being an FPS, if you don't love mechs, it's just an FPS, and that's hard as an indie to do. Next one up is the big game of the week. Tex Murphy is back. If you don't know who Tex Murphy is, basically Tex Murphy is a dawn of the QuickTime event games, basically. It's an adventure game with a lot of full screen and motion video. Like, it was humor in these full screen videos, like a whole bunch of green screen stop acting type stuff. It was humorous and charming back in the day, and essentially the guys who did Tex Murphy, including the guy who played Tex Murphy, the guy who created Tex Murphy, they're all back to do Tex Murphy again, and now there's Kickstarter. They're going in at a Tim Schafer level. 450,000 is what we need to make this game. And are you good? You don't even know who Tex Murphy is. No, quit the stories. Just call on your shit right now. You don't know Tex Murphy. So they go through, do a wonderful pitch video that basically shows you a lot of how the story unfolds in the games if you never played the Tex Murphy games. Hats to Good Old Games for having Tex Murphy up for sale, like 1 and 2, because that's immediately where I went. I was like, can I buy... Wait, I don't have any need to go back and replay any Tex Murphy games. I need to stop right now. But, yep, they're up on Good Old Games to download and buy. So they're going to do another Tex Murphy adventure. This one has been up for a day or so, or a couple days, and it's already up $200,000. So this is your old school returning guy back game this week. And, you know, if you haven't played a Tex Murphy game, go to Good Old Games and, you know, grab one and just, you kind of have to live it for the nostalgia factor. You have to, like, take it in and understand, like, this was at the dawn of the era of when we could do green screen acting and that kind of thing. You know, it's kind of like seventh guest level DVDs or CD-ROMs are a thing now. We can do things on a CD-ROM we couldn't do before, and the industry's trying to figure out what can we do.
Oh, the storage!
So, I think it is worth checking out. I mean, obviously by the funding that, you know, there's a lot of nostalgia built up for this series, and it's good to see it come back to light. It's good to go in there. Rasket mentioned in there when I was talking about the mech. MechWarrior Tactics beta is soon. Yeah, you need to be signed up. If you went to the MechWarrior Tactics and reserved your call sign, which I probably spammed you with because, like, I think your call sign or somebody... There was something if you got 5 people to use your referral link, so I had to get 5 people, like, after I got in to do that. That does not get you into the beta. You actually need to be registered on the forums, I think, in time to get on the beta.
Okay.
Of Tactics. So, which is going to be like a free-to-play web game at some point, I think. But, you know what? I freaking love the Mech Commander games. So, Mech Commander 1 and Mech Commander 2, which were these tactical top-down mech games. So, if they do them in that style, I'm looking forward to that. Pinball Arcade. A lot of funding out of the gate. So, these are the guys who have made the Pinball Arcade game that's on XBLA, on Steam, I think, as well, which is basically pinball simulators game. Now, I would have glanced over this if I didn't see $14,000 funded to it, because I'm thinking, like, video pinball. Who even wants to play video pinball? To me, that's not even appealing, because, like, to me, I guess, like, the appeal of pinball is a pinball table. But there is a hardcore crew who want digital pinball, and what they want in digital pinball is actually renderings of the actual machines. These guys don't fuck around. They 3D image the actual pinball game that they're replicating. He shows the video at some point where they disassemble the entire thing and 3D model every individual part. They actually write emulators so that the code that ran on the pinball game for the scoring systems and the board in the back is the exact same code that runs in the game. You know?
It seems crazy. Like,
it seems crazy and insane.
Emulate.
But if you're into this, like... These are the guys that you want, right? Like, if you're into this, man, like, these are the guys... This is beyond making a pinball game. They are actually digitally archiving pinball. Like, in the future, when we have the Capricorn V-World... When we have the Caprica V-World thing that we can all log in, we'll have these pinball tables. Like, they'll be able to reconstruct them from this data and, you know, have all the exact same, because we will have preserved these things. So if this scratches your itch, you know, go back it. I hope to see this thing funded, because it's that kind of crazy niche thing that indie development and Kickstarter can do that publishers would not fund. Because publishers have tried funding. That's why they're on XBLA with that one title, Pinball Arcade. But, and apparently this Twilight Zone pinball thing is like the rated #1 greatest of all time table.
It was fun. I played that.
I mean, I don't
play pinball tables, and that.
I don't know why this would be the thing, but this apparently is the most complex, most intricate table. To me, I was always just sold on like, hey, look, it's Terminator. I want to play Terminator, or it's Addams Family. I get that, and want to play that. But the guy tells the story. The guy who designed this table designed the Addams Family table, which was highly successful. So like Midway or whoever said build this table said no strings attached. No budget, no input from us. You go into a room and design whatever it is that you want to do. They let him go off and do it, and he came back with the #1 pinball table of all time. So it's a really cool story behind it. You see stuff like this, and you get tempted to like, I could buy a pinball table and fix it up and have it in my house, and like,
No.
like I have the arcade cabinet niche. Oh man. I so close came to buying a Dig Dug arcade cabinet.
Dig Dug is allowed. We have a spot right there.
We have a spot, and I've thought about that. Initially I thought of like, I will build a MAME emulator cabinet and then just emulate all these games. But like, there's some appeal of like having an actual arcade cabinet. And Dig Dug would be the one, because there was a fair that I went to that in the morning, they opened up a tent that had an arcade. This is like in the 80s. This literally is in the 80s. I'm like, I mean, like 82, 83. It was the Ohio State Fair coming to Georgetown. And in the morning, my mom would drop me off, and then I would buy a ticket for $5 and spend the whole day in the fair, and she'd come pick me up after lunch or whatever. And yes, this was in a small town in the time where you could drop off a 6 or 8 year old kid, and not worry, right? So she'd give me the cash, and then she'd give me some cash to go in the arcade in the morning, before the thing opened. And I spent all my money one morning on Dig Dug and could not get into. I actually then just sat down and cried because like I couldn't do it. I was going to have to sit there for like 4 hours because we don't have cell phones, in the mid-80s. There's nothing I can do, and I just kind of like am dealing with like my addiction to the game has now like ruined my life, and all this stuff. And like some mom recognizes me and takes pity and buys my entryway and all that,
Wow.
That memory is very real. That's one of the memories, because you don't have memories when you're little of actual things, but this is very real. And so Dig Dug would be that arcade cabinet. And oh man, there was an arcade cabinet, and then I had a friend who wanted to sell his vintage actual Miss Pac-Man arcade cabinet, which is one of the highly sought after ones. And we have this place in town that has arcade cabinets in the bar, and I'm thinking like, they don't have a Miss Pac-Man unit, and since it's so nostalgic, I would probably be able to work a swap or something, and see if I could work that. And
how much was the Miss Pac-Man cabinet?
No, that's the thing. These cabinets are like $200 to $300 tops.
Okay.
Because it's all about, can you get someone to move it?
Right.
It's about like, A, will you buy it? B, can you move it? Well, I've got my truck, and you can't lay a cabinet down, by the way. It can damage the parts in it. It has to be moved standing up. So like, that whole thing's involved. Like, I'll take care of all of it. I've got the truck. We'll figure it out. And backed off at the last moment. And like, I really need to build the emulator so I can emulate every game. But, anyway, last 2 Kickstarters here. Rend, this looks really nice. I don't know if they'll hit funding. Creepy dude pitching his Kickstarter, but imagine
is he intentionally being creepy, or is he just...
I think he's just creepy.
Okay.
He's got... Is there a gameplay video? Because we don't have to... He's interlaced entirely in gameplay footage. So, come on, dude. Where's like... So, and basically imagine if you did, Limbo as sort of an action scroller, instead of more of a puzzle scroller, is kind of what this game is. I mean, it looks really nice. The art style looks nice, and it looks interesting. I'm a little disappointed I don't see more people funding this one, because it does look well, but maybe, it just needs, he needs to get out there and pump it, and, everything seems to be going right on this. $10 for the game, $25, got some special backing projects, asking for $15,000, and, maybe this is just a slow burn Kickstarter. One thing I'd like to do on studying Kickstarters is just start figuring out, like, do they have patterns to how they behave? Like, is there, like, heavy launch style or slow burn style or things like that?
What you can expect going in. Like, if you don't get it and there's no such thing as a slow burn... Then...
It could also be like, he's freaking creepy, and he opens a video with him, so that could be it. The last one here, unfortunately, is another... It is Gun Swords 10 Soldiers. Rend was the one prior to that. I hope I remember to say the name. Again, you see this 3D artwork. It looks amazing. They got this rendering thing going on, which I'm going to guess is probably 3D Studio Max. I don't know that it's actually in-game rendering of gameplay. So I think that hurts them one. They have screenshots of kind of the maps and things of what it'll be. But unfortunately, here's the gameplay trailer. Unfortunately, on this otherwise well-looking combat game, jeez, come on, get in the gameplay. All right, otherwise looking game, it's free to play, and it's like, oh, we're going to give you $200,000 gun sword points, right? Awesome. What's that worth? Am I going to be able to play the game, or am I going to have to continually give you money to play the game? I don't know the model. And free to play means, why don't I just wait till the game comes out and then I'll play it free? So that wraps up the Kickstarters that were notable this week. Overall, the week seemed to do better in terms of the ratio of junk to serious games. Like, games with a demo, games with art and serious, asking for legit amounts and looking like they can execute, versus somebody going, hey, I have an awesome idea and I need to hire a designer and an artist and a programmer and a team, and then they'll make my awesome idea. There was an article I didn't link to, but the lead designer of Diablo 3, he was in an interview, and he basically, like, said at some point in the interview, like, if all you have is an idea, don't be going to game design. Just don't. We don't need you. Everybody has ideas, and we just don't want to have to, like, crush your dreams brutally and viciously.
I've heard that before. I've heard that a lot, and not just video games, but
yeah. So he's like, that's not a reason to get into game development if you think you have a good game idea with it. So that sort of wraps up the podcast. We ran not that long, about 2 hours. With it, but I want to thank you again, David, for coming on the show.
No worries. Thanks for having me on.
We'll have links and show notes to all your stuff, but you can just go into smudgedcatgames.com. What's the story behind that? What's the reason? How are you Smudged Cat Games? Is there a story behind that?
I've got, it's as simple as I have a cat called Smudge. It's not that imaginative, but yeah, when I was coming up with a name, that seemed like a logical thing to do.
Well, there's definitely a thing of XNA developers and cats. Like, everybody has a cat. Have you put your cat in the game yet?
No, there's been no cats at all in any games. I know one of the lead designers of the actual XNA framework.
Well, Shuggy is a cat, right?
No, he's yeah, I don't know what he is. He's a little sort of purpley cartoon vampire thing.
But no actual photographs of your cats in the game.
No actual cats.
Okay, that seems to be a thing, or at least was a thing at one time. Looking at some of the older XNA games. Doing on there. But thank you, David, again for coming on. Thank you, everyone who tunes in to the live stream, for watching us Saturday morning. Thank you, everyone who watches it on YouTube or downloads the audio podcast. We will be back probably normal time in a week.